So, good morning everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Patrick Clerens, I'm Secretary General of EASE, the European Association for Storage of Energy. And today we will, in the frame of this Discover Hydropower tour, we will understand a bit more about energy storage in general. And I'm very happy to be here about Hydropower because it's actually the most installed energy storage capacity we have in Europe, but also globally. So, EASE, what is EASE, what are we doing? As I said, it's the European Association for Storage of Energy, meaning that we have three main goals. We are located in Brussels, and we obviously promote the role of benefits of energy storage, because that's one of the things we have to do on European level. It is not enough known which added value storage can bring to the whole energy system. We are working on a fair market design for energy storage, and there's mainly this Clean Energy for the Europeans package, which is under discussion for the moment, but it's also going further into the details, how to implement it, the network codes and all the rest. And then, obviously, technologies need to evolve, energy density needs to increase, prices need to go down, and there's a lot of work to be done in RD&D, also the deployment of these technologies. EASE, who is EASE? It's a bunch of companies, roughly 40 companies coming together, and we have the whole chain which is there. We have companies making cells or components, making the whole equipment. Then we have companies using it, utilities. We have the distribution system operators, we have transmission system operators, research centers, universities, so we have a lot of different members. We have some associations which doing specific activities. So it's basically all companies coming together around energy storage, and this has an added value because it's the whole sector speaking with one voice. On the other side, sometimes it can be quite challenging when you want to know who may own energy storage, and you ask a utility or you ask a regulated entity, then the answer may be very different. So energy storage as such, energy storage is everywhere. It's on the extra high voltage level, high voltage, but also the distribution grid, so not only transmission, also distribution grid, and it has different functions it fulfills there. If you look at larger scale storage, you see the pumped hydro plants there. If you look at home storage, empowering the consumer to store his own PV electricity and use it when he ever wants to do this, then you go more to the distribution level where a lot of connection points exist. But the main role of storage is a tool of flexibility. I mean, you're all aware that we need to balance generation and consumption at all times. And if it's not balanced, then this frequency will change. So we need always to generate the same amount as we use. And that's really the challenge of the future with more variable renewable energy sources and how to make this happen. And we will continue to have a lot of sources. If you look at the prediction and look at Germany, the peak demand is roughly 80 gigawatt in Germany. But it is very often cited that 300 gigawatt needs to be installed to meet this peak capacity of renewable sources, if you want to go carbon free and have renewable sources. I don't know if this 300 will be installed, or maybe only 200 will be installed, but this is roughly 4 times as much as what you need at peak. So you will have a lot of days where you have, in the summer, wind, where you have hundreds of gigawatt hours to take care of in short times. We're moving in directions not seen until now. It is a huge amount of energy we need to move around. And when you look what the impact is, I gave this statistics about actual wind power and the forecast. And you can see that sometimes the forecast is having, in this specific case, it was some megawatts, it was 20 megawatts, it was 25% difference between the forecast and the actual really generated wind energy. It's getting better and better, we understand more and more how it goes, but if we install larger capacities, the absolute numbers of megawatt hours or gigawatt hours will increase too. So it has an impact on the price then. As soon as we see that the generation it's not matching what was foreseen, prices jump, and there will be price signals to also install flexibility items, and storage is one of them obviously. There are different flexibility items. When you look at the different items, we took now the 4 ones. It's not very visible, but I will start with demand side management. It has a huge potential, but the question is, will it be realized? Actually, I personally believe if you do not have technologies, demand-side management will not be realized. We are all too rich. I mean, if you look at this picture, which you also cannot really see, it's a baby in the bath. And the question I always ask is, how much would you save in order to give the baby bath at midnight? We are too rich to give the baby bath at midnight. We'll never do this. We will continue to give the bath at, I don't know, 6 o'clock it's needed. So if you do not decouple the energy use, the habit of the users from the generation with technology, storage technologies or others, then we will not manage to really grasp all the demand-side management potential. Obviously there's grid extension. We need to go on to build more grids and also high voltage grids, and you see the discussions are ongoing. Germany has a lot of renewable in the north and needs electricity in the south, and there was a question, should we put high voltage transmission lines? And I think the decision was now that it will be cables, underground cables, which should be built, which increases the price enormously. Well, what is done, because public acceptance for high voltage lines above your home are, I would say, almost inexistent. So it's a lot of question of also public perception, public acceptance when you talk about grid extension. Flexible conventional generation, that's how we get the flexibility in the market for the moment. We see there's a lot of overcapacity in the system, of generation overcapacity in the system, because we build renewable sources on top of the existing energy system, and they are available for flexibility. But there we're more and more asking ourselves, how is this fitting with the environmental targets we have put down, the Paris agreements, and the sustainability impact these plans have? Which basically leaves a huge room, a huge need for energy storage technologies, where we see many different technologies are available, and they are used for different applications. And these technologies are needed, and here you see we try to cluster them in 5 families actually. Chemical, electrochemical, electrical, mechanical, and thermal. We believe these families will stay. The members of the families may change and will for sure change, but the families will roughly stay. So now we're talking about hydropower, pumped hydropower, where we're in the mechanical storage, and this is mainly used also when you look at liquid air energy storage, compressed air energy storage. It's mainly used for larger scale storage, while you see that in the mechanical family you also find the flywheels, which store very little amount of energy but has a lot of power. So these different parts are seen, and we see that the electrochemical, which are these batteries, is the one which is, I would say, grew the most in the last years. And we have an evolution on the components. We have discussions about, should we make batteries in Europe, should we make them in Asia, should we go from oil dependency now to electric vehicles to battery dependency, or should we try to get more technologies done here? So coming back to hydro, hydro is the most installed storage in Europe and actually globally. So this is clear. It's still growing. There is potential. There's also potential to revamp the existing sites, to get from fixed speed to variable speed and so on. So there are a lot of possibilities and activities ongoing. But what is really growing in percentage, it's growing from a very low base. It's the non-pump hydro storage ones, which go from 0.6 gigawatt hours in 2015, so 3 years ago, to this year, they're going 2.6 gigawatt hours. So they are more than 4-fold, 5-fold almost increasing, and it's really a boom which is coming, which is also due to the fact that the prices for electrochemical storage are going really down. We see the biggest segment is on the transmission system for grid services, because there's a revenue, there are really some benefits to be made. So you could put down a storage device and then actually have the grid services delivered with it. You see it also more and more from industries. They optimize their connection costs by having storage, or they optimize the energy consumption by having storage. And the homeowner, which is empowered, first of all, it's sometimes economic. If you see that you have a subsidy of your PV which is going away, and you get almost no money to feed it into the system, maybe it's more economic to use it yourself instead of buying electricity at a high price. And also it's very sexy to be able to use your phone and then to say, oh, I consumed all my energy, I produced myself, and it's a very fancy thing to do. So basically you see this growing, it will continue to grow. The price will go down. We see that the solar panels prices will go down. China now said that they will reduce their own solar panel installations, meaning there will be an impact on the world markets. When China decides something, it's a ripple through the whole world going through. So we see that really the prices probably in Europe will also go down, further down for solar panels. So different technologies and different applications. You have applications, technologies like flywheels would work in the seconds, and you go until power to gas, methane or hydrogen going to year, or compressed air or pump storage going into the months, the 8 months part. So different technologies have different applications. That's why we will need also a lot of different technologies to match all the applications which are coming here. But this is really not visible at all. So actually the only thing you need to remember is these highlights: customer service, distribution, transmission, conventional services, and renewable generation. These are the titles to show you what I showed you in the introduction, that the energy storage technologies will support and will help everyone. From the conventional generation, where you put some batteries into a gas turbine, or transmission systems which are not building a second line for investment deferral, or just for voltage control or electricity quality, the distribution level, which is very often flooded at some times with the sun energy. Customer service, I told you, to empower the consumers and to have the electricity at their disposal, to earn money, to have it aggregated. And then the renewable generation, we see more and more that the feed-in tariffs depend if you bid into a market, if you're dispatchable, if you offer in the day-ahead market or in the intraday market. And to do so reliably without any penalties, you need to have some kind of backup strategy where storage could be one. When you look at the different technologies I mentioned before, what is happening today is the seconds and minutes application. The minutes reserve, you talk about it very often, or it's called in the UK, they make a specific product, and it's frequency response. In other countries, it's called, following the network codes now, the frequency containment reserve, the FCR. This is mainly a product where technology or owner of this technology can make revenue. Synthetic inertia is emerging as a product. And there is the differences. This enhanced frequency response, you need to provide all the energy in less than 1 second. So you see on an island, which is less interconnected, they have earlier the needs to stabilize the system, to have maybe synthetic inertia and frequency response. On the continent, we are well interconnected, we have a lot of generation mass, a lot of rotating masses. Not sure we need today already the enhanced frequency response, so below 1 second action. Maybe the frequency containment reserve, which is after 30 seconds to deliver your electricity, is enough. But we move to a more variable renewable world. We saw this, and we will come to the same level where we need faster reacting and more accurate devices. And that's where storage comes into them. But actually very often these services are tendered on the market, but not always. Then is there always a product which grasps the added value? Told you before, if battery storage provides it in less than 1 second, the energy needed to contain the frequency deviation, and others need 30 seconds, very often this frequency deviation is already stopped before the 30 seconds arrive, and all the heavy lifting is done by batteries. But since it's a capacity payments normally, everybody receives the same amount, also the ones who did not. So is this the way forward? Do we need to optimize our system in order to have really the ones who deliver more to the system, also earning more, and therefore stimulating business cases and stimulating development of technologies? Or should we just leave it as it is? When you look at the different applications, the historical application which was done was balancing, or arbitrage if you would like to call it. You pumped water up when it was very cheap, mainly in the night historically, and you delivered it at peak times in the afternoon, evening. That's what you did. But the business case is changing. The generation patterns are changing. This is for last year, renewable, and again, you don't see very well, but I have to get used to this until the rest of the presentation. Focus only on the higher peaks than where we are. We had variation in some months where we had 15.5 terawatt hours, which was produced in 2017 from wind and solar in Germany. If you go to the January time, you come to 8.5 terawatt hours. You see, it's different from almost double as much from one to the other. Which means that you will have not only to shift, as we do now, in the seconds and minutes to stabilize your system, you will have to shift electricity or energy in general from months or maybe seasons to balance your system. And this is the situation we see now, but we don't have a real business case for this. Very often you hear, yeah, but wind and solar are balancing each other, so that it's always the same amount, but it is not, at least it was not last year. And you need therefore to have longer-term storage. And the question is, if you want to go to seasonal storage, how do you remunerate those? So it's again about the business case. How do you make it happen? How can you ensure that you have a level playing field, that the service which is needed by the system if you want to decarbonize is also incentivized economically? This is what we're in now. There was no clear regulatory framework for energy storage. It did not exist on the EU level, at least. Very often it was seen as too costly or not needed. But now we see it's a technology which will be needed. I showed you in the introduction the growth, the variability, the need for more flexibility. And therefore we see that the regulatory framework starts to emerge. And I mentioned this clean energy package which we have. We have now in this clean energy package a step in the right direction. We're very happy about this, how it evolved since it was proposed in November 16. We have a definition for energy storage, but it's under discussion still. It's in trialogue, so it means this proposed package for the moment is under discussion between Council, Parliament and Commission to find a compromise text. So it's finished. And if you look at the definition for energy storage, which the Parliament proposes, it would exclude hydrogen. Because it asks you before you use it to convert it, to reconvert it. But hydrogen, very often you would be able to use it directly in the economy and not reconverting it. So it excludes some technologies where you would use it directly, also heat storage. If you take electricity, make heat and want to use this heat, would not be included following our analysis. So there's some work to be done to make sure that energy storage stays open, also for sector exports. We see that it is mentioned several times as a key element for the energy system, which is good. It says that it should be not subject to discrimination in the charging policy, and I come back to this in a moment. And it's mentioned that procurement, market-based procurement, should happen, as well as empowering the consumer for self-consumption. But it is still only the beginning. We believe we should go further to develop a level playing field. And in this case, we want to make sure that, as I said, all storage technologies are included. And maybe the easiest way forward is to generate or to define a separate asset class. Because storage can be generation, storage can be transmission, and storage can be distribution and consumption. So it can be the grid, the generation, or the consumption, which is normally not the case. Either you're a generator or you're a consumer, but here energy storage can be all three parts. And the question is it easier to tweak the existing network codes, to tweak the existing regulation and scrutinize everywhere where storage could fit? Or is it better maybe to make it on asset class and make the old rules, maybe copy pasting from other parts, the regulations where it fits already from the network codes, but to start from scratch to avoid these unintended consequences or limitations which could happen if you just tweak all the existing text. We see a lot of double charging. It's something which we don't understand. Physically, 1 kilowatt hour can be consumed only once. But these are the laws of physics. But the laws of some member states allow this to be taxed twice for consumption. So either it's the laws of physics which are wrong, or it's the laws of this government which are wrong, one of those. We're not really sure which one for the moment, but it's not compatible to. It's not working. And it is still not clear who may own storage. Storage, as I said, has added value also on the grid side. May therefore a regulated entity use energy storage to avoid building a second line? Or is this something which should not be into the grasp of the regulated players for different reasons? And will there be not then a push to incentivize them to build lines even if it would be the most costly solution? This is what needs to be done. And when we look at why this all is addressed, is because we want to have the European copper plate. You always hear this, the European copper plate. We want to have one energy system, a bigger market working throughout different member states. But if you want to do this, you need to create a level playing field. And again, as you can see, you don't see a lot, but as you can see, you have different treatment in different member states. You have some member states, and here Ireland, it's going up to here, 30 million euros. We have the same pump storage plant, virtual pump storage plant. We moved around in European countries with the same charging discharging pattern. And we looked how much must this plant pay in order to be allowed to work the same way. The grid costs, only the grid cost, are 30 million roughly in Ireland and nothing in Greece or nothing in Italy. So if you create one market with these different costs, and 30 million a year is quite some money you need to generate for one pump storage plant.
Just to break even, just to get back to zero.
That's quite some cost. You will never have a level playing field. So how can you have one integrated market where the conditions are so different in the different member states? That's not working. So we need to work on this. Basically, as a conclusion, which we see, as a takeaway, we see that pump hydro is already an important provider. We see this. But the importance is very often not seen or not taken up. Therefore, there's more need for hydropower to be seen. And there has to be some changes. And we believe if you would allow for scarcity pricing, if you would allow for long-term contracts to have a view on the revenues, maybe it's less important for pump hydro, but if I'm a battery supplier, or if I'm providing a service to a battery pack, and I know that in 1 year or in 2 years' time, another company, a competing company, could offer the same service with a battery they bought 30-40% cheaper, obviously they will deliver the service cheaper. And in 2 years I cannot amortize my investment. So if I don't have a longer-term vision on my revenues, a longer-term contract, then it's very difficult to get the funding. We made in November last year a workshop on funding of energy storage. It was very nice, very big success. The main conclusion was, if I don't see as an investor a revenue stream for your storage device, I will not invest in this. And this revenue stream must be visible at least 5, better 10 years. I think that's almost spoiled by renewable feed-in tariffs or something, but that's what's coming from the market. We need to be able to stack services. It's very important that you do not limit the services to one specific application. So if you make a product and you stipulate that the device may only be used for this product because you're afraid that otherwise it will not be able to deliver the product, this would hamper the development. It should be left to the market. There should be some penalties if it's not delivering, but it should not be locked into one specific service. We should allow to stack these different services. And we see that the network code still need to be tweaked, still to be adapted. Should be done with an own network code, should be adapted to the existing one, it's under discussion. And I showed you before the grid fees and charges which are not really allowing for a single integrated European market. This is in a nutshell the thoughts on storage and where we are, and any question is welcome if you have.